When you think of Israel, you probably think of things like the startup nation and a powerful military. But have you ever stopped to ask, who are the Israeli people and what makes Israeli society so different and successful? Tal Mandelbaum Ben-Moshe is a social psychologist who spent years studying how people connect and what makes up the fabric of a society. She's here with us today to tell us more. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Now, you're a psychologist that studies human interaction. How has that influenced how you see Israelis in Israel?
Well, it is very interesting, and I think it's interesting as an Israeli to have this perspective of looking at society and how everything, comes together. And one of my, inner questions, my personal questions that I've had since childhood is really about how the world sees Israel, how much attention Israel attracts from the media. We're always at the center. There's always a focus on Israel and what happens here and what doesn't happen here. So I asked myself, how does such a small country, such a young country, attract so much attention? And so walking around with this question really makes you see things that you wouldn't see otherwise.
Sure.
And so one of my conclusions has been that there's really something about this nation. There's something about the people here that we need to look at, that we need to research to understand why it is that we're the focus in the world. So I'd like to share with you some of these things that I've come across that
Sure, we'd love to hear what you found.
That help me see Israel not the way the media sees it, not through the media's eyes, but really the authentic Israel or the real Israel.
And these are the human interactions, correct? This is what we're looking at, really, Israelis interacting with other Israelis.
Well, yeah, because that's what really makes up a society, right? That's what that's the fabric,
sure.
And that's the face that we have towards the world, and that's what people are looking to. We're always, we're always asked to uphold certain values in the eyes of the world, and why? Why is it the Israeli nation, the Jewish people, that are expected of so much? And so, looking at the Israeli people, you don't really see anything different on the outside, but if you look a little deeper, and if you're really willing to venture into the authentic Israeli life, then I think some of these secrets begin to open up.
Definitely.
So I'd like to tell you of a project that I've come across,
sure.
A radio initiative actually, that's called Israel Story. It's a team of young Israelis that decided that they want to show Israel in its authentic way. Through radio, and it began as a kind of podcast for family and friends, and then it was picked up by Galei Tzahal, which is one of Israel's largest channels. And basically what they do is they just interview regular Israelis with regular stories, and they bring it out in such a creative way, in such an interesting way, that through these stories you really begin to enter the society, the everyday life of Israel in a way that you haven't before, and you can really connect emotionally to what happens here in a new way.
It sounds fantastic. Could you give us some examples of the stories?
So I went through their episodes. You can see their website. It's also in English, which is really cool. So I went through their episodes, and one episode that I really liked is called Stop the Bus. And it's two stories about buses, about things that happen on buses in Israel. And unfortunately and sadly, most of the time what we hear in the media about what happens on Israeli buses is, the horrific stories from terrorist bombing.
Definitely.
So here, finally, you get to hear an everyday story about Israeli life on buses. They tell about the central station in Tel Aviv, which apparently used to be the biggest one in the world until recently, and how weird it is, and how intricate it is, and how many different types of people you'll find there, and how big it is, and how messy, and how loud. It really, they call it a kind of microcosmos of Israel, this station. And you hear the stories of the people that they interview, and their complaints and their feelings, and you really find, I think this is what I found about these stories that I heard, that the Israeli nation is really people who want to open their hearts. There's not a lot of pretense. They're very real. They're very direct. And they want to share their stories. They want to connect, and I think that's something that really kind of shone out to me in this project. Another example is they went to every street in Israel called Herzl Street, and there's 54.
There's a lot of them.
There's 54 of them actually, and interviewed people on Herzl streets in Israel. Again, there was a butcher from Akko and a stoner in Tel Aviv, a young couple whose very dramatic tale is told in song. So it's really like a tapestry of differences, and that's the Israeli society. And these stories are so interesting and so moving and so creative that they really tell the Israeli story in a different way. So I really recommend this website.
Definitely.
Just look for Israel Story on the website, and you'll find it. And try to delve into Israel from an emotional perspective.
Definitely, and it sounds like from these examples, even the street example, that the same name of a street, you can find people from so many different walks of life in Israel. Really seems to be representative of the country.
Yeah, I mean, there's this one title, Israel, that I think most people know very certain things about, but really it contains so much more.
Sure.
And as a psychologist, I'd like to say that I think really what makes us happy at the end of the day are those moments when people open their hearts and share their story and find that something that they can find as mutual as a shared purpose, a shared story or theme that make them feel like they belong. And so what I see in this project that I told about and many others that I find that I'd like to bring to you is this effort. And I feel we are a nation that has a yearning to find this connection, that we're so diverse and we're so different, and yet there's something internal inside of us that's searching for that connection. I think that is a step into realizing what it is about this nation that is so special.
Definitely. Well, it's fascinating to hear about this research, and thank you so much for coming in today.
Well, it's my personal research, and I'd like to share more with you if possible, and thank you so much.